Yo, welcome to the Dynasty Evaluation Show. I'm John McGlynn. It is week 14 over with. Almost time for it is time for the fantasy football playoffs. We got some injuries, some waivers, some news and notes and stuff that happened around the NFL. And then we're going to get to some trades that happened and then talk about things you could do in the playoffs if you have not done them yet. You could do this year possibly or next year. Now that playoffs are fresh in everybody's mind, do some things next year that you can add to your leagues to make them a little bit better or as good as possible to do. So let's get started.
McGlynn is in. I repeat, McGlynn is in. Let the fun begin. This is the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with your host, John McGlynn.
Was that Herms?
He got them guests on the Rolodex, stopping by to talk about some Dynasty Superflex. Everybody, yo, commish is in. It's time to sit down to listen to John McGlynn. Yo, who we trading, who we fading, who we getting off the squad. Knowledge never overrated, playing for number one. And yo, McGlynn is in. It's time to let the fun begin. It's the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with John McGlynn.
Well, it's a Dynasty Evaluation Podcast. I got to change that. And I pressed the wrong one, not the Fantasy and Frames one. So we get this. So here we go. So today we're going to talk about some injuries that happened last week. I traded or drafted Jonathan Brooks in 9 different leagues this year. I just traded a first-round pick, a second-round pick, some other things because of Brooks. I mean, that's just my luck. It shit happens. That kind of shit happens to me all the time. As soon as I trade for somebody, but Brooks, I'm not sure they should have just. What's the point of putting him in right now? Get a couple reps, whatever. It made zero sense for a team that didn't make the playoffs, and they kept pushing his time back to come back. Something was funny. He didn't feel right. It's almost. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing because I would rather have it happen now. If surgery wasn't done right or it wasn't completed or he knew something was funny or he felt something funny. It's like a whole different. It's just one of those things where I felt something. It almost felt like something was wrong or something was going to happen anyway. Now maybe he goes to a different doctor. Or the doctor does it 100% right this time. He gets the rehab correctly. Now he's got a whole year and a half to come back. So it is what it is. He'll have plenty of time to heal. But Jonathan Brooks is probably the most dagger to the heart of all the injuries that happened this week, and it was absolutely terrible. JT, how bad did it hurt you?
Yeah, that one's brutal. I'm coming the same boat with you. I thought why I understand bringing him back in the practice window and let him practice and get used to the team and doing all that. But to me, I was in the same boat. I was like, man, this just doesn't make sense. Why bring this guy back at this point in the season? Now you kind of know why they signed Chuba to a longer an extension after seeing all this stuff kind of happen. But yeah, that one was brutal. I know me and you had went out and made a couple trades for him recently, so that does make it a little rougher with the injury news on him. So Chuba, if you got Chuba, you're happy about having him. But yeah, Jonathan Brooks, that's gonna be a big question in the offseason is why they brought him back and why they thought it was important this deep in the season to actually get him on the field. But yeah, that one's rough. As soon as I heard the news, I was like, they're like non-contact injury. I was like, oh man, I was like, he either blew out the same knee or blew out the other knee. I'm like, that is not great. So that one's rough.
Not
the only good thing you hope for him is he is super young. That was one of the big benefits with him coming out was a lot of the other guys were 22, 23 already. And he was only 20 coming out. So that was the hope that he was young. Hopefully he has plenty of time to recover. But yeah, that was a tough injury.
It was tough. So I also traded for Derek Carr last week. Made a whole bunch of moves for, because I already had Dak Prescott and Trevor Lawrence go down. So I'm like, man, it would be nice to have a quarterback for this run. That would be awesome. So I traded for Derek Carr. And now I got to trade for another quarterback because I had the best team in the entire league, and I lost every quarterback known to man. So I just traded for Jameis Winston, which buys me some time, but I'm not going to be able to put a quarterback in my super flex spots. So
John, I'm in the same boat. I'm in a league where I had Daniel Jones was my second QB behind Lamar Jackson in a team that I'm in the playoffs, and I just was last week traded a third rounder in 2026 for Derek Carr. to try to help me in my playoff push. And of course, he gets hurt this week and is out for the rest of the season. I was like, well, there's a third rounder wasted. Will jumped in here and said the way the Panthers run their organization, I'm 100% convinced they knew dead Brooks, something was wrong with his surgery, and that's why they signed Hubbard to a long-term deal. I agree, Will. It just felt like something was funky about that whole situation. I'm still surprised they had him come back because it was like one of those things where like, oh, he won't be ready at the very beginning of the year, but we expect him to be back pretty early. And then it was like, you never heard anything about it all year. And then it got later and later in the year. And then you're like, oh, is he going to play at all this year? After it sounded like he was only going to miss like the first 4 games. And then for them to let it go on that long, yeah, it's kind of a crazy situation. But you hate to like just pile on the Panthers. But when you have a history of like blowing things like this, I think it's like you assume it's some kind of organizational problem. So that one does hurt. But yeah, John, I tell you what, quarterback situations right now. Trade, I just made a trade for Derek Carr. I had another league where we have our trade deadline and went up to the last game last night, and I just missed the playoffs. It's a median scoring league, so we get the regular win and then the median league. I got 1 out of the 2. I lost head-to-head to the number 1 team in the league, but I won the median. I missed the playoffs. I was going to miss the playoffs by 1 game. Like last second, I traded David Montgomery for a 25 first-round pick. What do you think about that?
I mean, that's
I traded right before the buzzer. It was like 30 seconds left in the game, and I accepted the trade because I needed him for the playoffs. If I was going to make the playoffs, I need him for the playoff run. But I'm like, crap, and I don't have a first round pick this year, and I missed the playoffs. So I was like, all right, I'm going to trade him. I was like, I hate to get rid of him because I love Monty, but I was like, all right, I'm going to trade him because I've been trading some other guys too because that team is super old that I had, and I was trying to make one final push for the playoffs and missed by 1 freaking game. I've either made the playoffs or missed the playoffs by 1 game in the 5 or 6 years I've been in that league. I picked up an orphan in that league. It's like I'm right on the verge every year. It drives me nuts.
It's pretty funny. Somebody's got one of the better teams in our league has got the 1-2 stack at running back is Montgomery and Gibbs. And it's like, wow, this is great. Why would you do that for? And then it's like, wow, they both get 30 points a game fucking running the ball. So why wouldn't you do that? It does. I mean, it's weird that combination works. It used to be the old, there's a handful of teams that always had that scenario. But remember back in the day with, Jonathan, the Panthers runners. Either you got both of them or you got one of them or one of them got hurt and you hit a goal by him. But it was always the same guys.
What was it?
Jonathan
Stewart and Williams.
Yeah. So
yeah, I have to tell you, I have way too many Najee Harris, Jalen Warren stacks where I play both those guys. And they're not as good as having Gibbs and Monty together, but they're still solid players. This year hasn't worked out as quite as well as in some of the years past, but they've both been pretty good still.
So, all right, let's run through some other. We just talked about Aiden O'Connell. I'm sorry. I'm going to start out with Aiden O'Connell. He's
another guy I picked up in a bunch of leagues that immediately then got hurt. Now I'm like looking at like trying to figure out who I'm going to play come playoff time here. Yeah, that one's another rough one.
The worst is when I'm in the playoffs, so hopefully I can make it by the talent I have and the depth. And depth is more important. I think some people make their team the 10 best starters they could possibly make. They trade up picks and players to go from tier up with a draft pick to move up in the next tier, somebody else, and they have zero depth whatsoever on their bench, and they have 0 draft picks, and they have whatever. That's fine. I like depth. I like my team to be. If I showed you my teams, a lot of the teams that I've built up the last 4 or 5 years, I got a lot of depth on my team, and it's for situations like this. But even when I had 5 quarterbacks on this team depth, and I lost all 5 of them this year. There's nothing you can do about that. That's just shit luck, So, Aiden O'Connell season end.
I had a team that was number 1 overall team last year, number 1 overall scoring team in a full IDP league, and I finished second to last and second to last in points this year. Just injuries everywhere. Literally the same team. Just injuries everywhere. Everything that could fell apart. Those ones kill. Oh, we got to trade. Will said back in one of his leagues, he traded Puka for Evans in a 2025 early first back in October. That early first just turned into a first overall last night. That's what we love to see, Will. That's awesome. I'll never forget the time I traded a future, not the next year, but 2 years out, AJ Green for the guy who won the league the year before. So it was looking like it was going to be a late first. for AJ Green coming back off injury. He came back, did absolutely nothing. The guy's team fell apart the next season after winning it, and I ended up getting the 1-1 and got Trevor Lawrence in a 2 QB league. So every once in a while, those things work out for you. Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, and we got our guy, Chris Joel Smith, in here. Woo! Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for joining us. Sorry, John, keep jumping on the injuries here. I'm jumping in, throwing in my.
That's okay. I like that you did that. That's fine. If I'm him and I'm tanking right now, or what I'm doing is trading Puka for Evans and the 25 first, and okay, that's fine. Now I'm going to trade Evans. Did he get? He got the early first, right?
Yeah, he traded away Puka and got Mike Evans in a first rounder.
I'm trading away Evans right now. If I'm doing that kind of stuff, I'm trading away Evans right now for picks too. But the guy, somebody's contending, because Evans is, you got to do what you got to do. He's only got a year or two left, and I'm not sure who. People are questioning his talent this year. I mean, last 2 years, he still performed, but he's starting.
He still balls out. I just traded him in another league that was like fighting for playoff spots. It was another start 2 QB league where I had no starting quarterbacks because all my guys got hurt. I actually somehow made the playoffs playing Mac Jones the last 2 or 3 weeks as my only QB, which is unbelievable. But I traded Mike Evans and David Montgomery away in that league, and I got Devontae Smith and Sam Darnold back. So it was a nice move. Made the playoffs, did it, and of course, our playoffs started a week early, so our playoffs started this past week, and I lost in the first round. So even though I got an awesome performance out of Sam Darnold, absolutely crushed it for me.
5 touchdowns.
Was unable to move on. Yeah, I had Sam Darnold save me in a ton of leagues, and had a few that I didn't play him. I played Tua over him in like 2 or 3 leagues, and I'm kicking myself on that one for sure. Yeah. But, John, I did want to pat us on the back. Me and you both, we've only been talking about how Sam Darnold just needed to be on a competent team with a competent coach, and he could actually be a good NFL quarterback, and everyone told us we were crazy. And Sam Darnold proving us right this year. Looking good. 5 TD game. I had a triple stack of him, Jordan Addison, and Jefferson in one league.
Nice.
I was like, hey, if you're going to pull it all out and do it, let's do it in the last week of the regular season, get me in the playoffs, do everything else. So nice triple stack there. But hey, just had to shout out us for saying Sam Darnold could do it if he was on the right type of team. And he is for once. He's on a good team and he looks good. I just wanted to do a shout out there on that. Me and you. We thought he could be like a Geno, like late career, kind of get on the right stuff, and people forget how young he is. It's only 27. He's got a lot of years left in him, so somebody's going to be smart. Sure, at least somebody should be smart and sign him long term. Will be interesting to see what the Vikings do here in the offseason. That's going to be, I think, one of the big stories is, do you sign him to like a 2 or 3 year bridge deal and wait on JJ, or do you just turn the reins over to a team that's obviously in clear win now mode and turn it over to a brand new QB coming off an injury? That's going to be the tough call for that organization.
I know. Unfortunately, I just traded Sam Darnold away for Will Levis in a first round pick in a different league because he was my third quarterback, even though he has some pretty big weeks. He has, I don't know what's going to happen next year. I know.
Yeah, that's the toughie with him. If you traded for him and he ends up a starter somewhere, you're going to be real happy. If he ends up going somewhere and backing up after you traded a first or second for him this year, it's going to be rough to
I'm not even if he's a starter somewhere, like let's say everything fills up and he's a starter at some place that doesn't have the same talent as,
what if he goes back to like the Jets or something and it's an utter disaster? You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, that's the problem too, is like, what if he does become a starter but he goes into a terrible team and then it's trouble again. Will's jumping back in. He says his team's loaded. He's going to ship off Mike Evans. He's got JJ, St. Brown, AJB, Lamb, Neighbors, Ridley. No wonder he was willing to get rid of Puka.
Yeah, right.
First, I love that call. Great job, Will. Yeah, now you can trade off Evans. Hopefully, get like maybe a early second or something from him. Something like that. Yeah, that's nice. I like that. I love when those trades work out.
Yeah,
in your favor. That's always a nice one.
All right, so Aiden O'Connell, season ending. Desmond Ridder to the rescue here. Will Levis. AC sprain, re-injury. maybe a week. We'll see what happens. He was able to return to the game, so we'll see. Justin Herbert left knee ankle. He should be okay, but he'll be back this week probably. Derek Carr, if you saw that play, he jumped. He landed on his chest. I thought it was like a neck or a head or something injury. He ended up destroying his hand. So he's out for the season, what it looks like anyway. He's not an IR yet, but it's. I mean, I don't understand why they would bring Chris Olave back with this situation with a backup quarterback, nothing to play for anymore, whatever. But I hope they don't. I hope Olave just sits out the rest of the season, gets his head clear, and doesn't come back. But Jake Haener would be probably the guy right now. Running back wise, Jonathan Brooks, Panthers, right knee. We talked about that earlier. He gone probably at least middle till middle of next year. It is what it is. Garendo came in. He's got something going on his foot. Nobody really knows yet. X-rays came back negative, but feet are funny.
Wouldn't that just be classic? After everybody gets hurt, everybody goes spends all their remaining fab money or waiver wire on him. Comes out, has a great game. I picked him up in a league. He helped me make the playoffs. Me and my buddy Ike in our Indy league with all his buddies from Indy were second to last 4 weeks ago, and then we won 4 straight games to jump up to the 6th seed, and made the playoffs. So we were pumped, but we picked up Gary Endo because we hadn't spent any of our fab all year. I went and unloaded everything on him and got him and then started him, and he actually we ended up winning and making the playoffs. Of course, if he goes out and doesn't play this week, you're gonna be like, oh, just you get him for 1 week and then you think you have him for the playoffs and you get nothing out of him would be classic. It just goes right to with my CMC of every team I have that I could probably go back and look at all my teams, and every team I had CMC on, I think I missed the playoffs. It was brutal.
JT, I made the trade of the century. I traded Isaiah Garendo and Sincere McCormick to get Jonathan Brooks, and the whole league went absolutely apeshit. Like, that's bullshit. How does that even happen? Blah, 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 blah. The game starts. Jonathan Brooks tears ACL again. Everybody's like, man, this is the trade of the century. I'm like, shut the. Talk about in a 2-day span from the league going absolutely apeshit to the league like, people were ready to rage quit in this league because of this trade. Like, this, how does this happen? This is bullshit. And then it turns out, man, that was a great trade. You might win the league because of this trade. Dude, that's super smart. I'm still taking Jonathan Brooks for the long term here, of course. And the good thing is I'm in like one of those rebuilding teams where I don't really need anybody right now, or I don't need any more points on my roster to get better draft position. But man, it's emotional waterfall.
Yeah, it's just that's fantasy football, week to week. Couple months difference, a trade looks great here, terrible there, and then everybody I think I talked about this going in last year. I made a couple trades for like Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry and some guys that everybody thought they were old over the hill, and they're like, oh, that's a terrible trade. I can't believe you gave that guy up for Barkley. And then of course now Barkley, if you take the exact same trade I made last year to get him, yep, and you show that trade now, people are like, oh, you stole that. How did you get Barkley so cheap? But last year, everybody was complaining, saying I was giving away young wide receivers for an old running back. Like, what was I doing? And I was like in a league where I didn't have a second starting running back. And I was like, if I got to give up somebody for Barkley, I'll do it. So again, it's fickle out there. It's like 1 second it looks like the best trade, and the next second it looks terrible. So again, if Gary Enda didn't get hurt and that guy goes on and wins the league because he made that trade with you, like it looks like he robbed you. You know what I mean? So right. You never know. That's why I'm always team no veto. Don't let people veto trades, because let people run their teams how they want to run them. If you want to make that trade because you're going for it all, you should be able to make that trade. And partly, you got to give up. If you're the one going for it, you're going to have to eat it a little bit. That's just the rules. Like, you got to eat it a little bit on the trade. You got to give up a little more than you get back when you're in a win now scenario. That's just the way it works.
That's how them things work, is right. Breece Hall, 15, hyperextension, MCL, maybe a week or two. They don't plan to shut him down, so he's all right. Your boy, George Pickens, hammy, 15, 16.
Absolutely buried me this week, John. Buried me this week. I usually get up way early. I've been sick like the last week, and I have had a couple days later on. This is two straight weekends in a row where I just was out cold. And my girlfriend tried to wake me up, and she's like, "You were sleeping harder than I ever see sleep." And like, she woke me up like 10 minutes before the game started. I was supposed to be up doing a bunch of stuff, being on a show. I just did not wake up at all. I wake up and find out he's not playing, and I'm like, what? And I've got George Pickens on 100 teams, like almost 100 teams, like literally almost every team I have. Right. I got him out of some lineups, but then I couldn't get to the other ones in time. And then what buried me was the teams I got him out of the lineup. I got McConkey in for him in a ton of leagues because I have both those guys. And then McConkey ended up not playing. I got more zeros this week. It was brutal. I took a ton of zeros in leagues. Very frustrating. Very, very frustrating, especially when there was like 6 bye weeks. So even if I caught it and I tried to get those guys out, I bet 80% of my leagues I didn't have anyone else to put in for them. Like I had guys that were going to either score 0 or everyone was on a bye week anyway. So it was super frustrating. And then I just barely missed the playoffs in a few of those leagues. And that'll burn you every time. It's just so annoying. But it sounds like not good this week. They're already saying they don't think he's going to play this week. No. They're already saying that Pickens is probably out.
Yeah, I heard that. It's when something comes out usually late in the week, it's something serious. It's something that didn't happen. It's something popped up. It's definitely something to monitor. And especially a hamstring, those are like a whole week and a half injury to begin with.
Well, the problem with those hammies, if you don't let them heal all the way, it's so easy to pull those again. It's so easy to aggravate them. I mean, we saw it with Mike Evans. He came back after that 1 week and immediately, it was like halfway through the first quarter, he hurt it again. So, I mean, when you're running full speed, especially wideouts on those long distances, it's so much easier to pull those hammies. So hopefully he gets back soon because I need him. Like I said, we're in playoffs mode now, and I've got him in a ton of leagues. I mean, I'd have to look at my overall percentage share, but it's a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, I've been pushing hard for Pickens since he came out, so I'm probably like 60% ownership or something insane, and I probably would have more if I could.
I had a chance to get Pickens in a couple leagues earlier this year, and I passed up an opportunity because people were asking too much. And not that I'm glad, because I think Pickens is still a great long-term asset to grab now. But man, I just kind of, especially in win now leagues, I'm glad I avoided that kind of spider web situation. So,
yeah, he's great. I like him in real life. I think he's good for fantasy. But the biggest issue for him in fantasy, he's just not a huge volume guy. So if he doesn't get a big play downfield, then it really caps what he scores for you on a week-to-week basis. Because he's a 3, 4, 5 catch a game guy. He's not a guy that's going to get you 10, 12 catches.
Right. McConkey, we saw the AC sprain. Puka Nacua was just in the comments a minute ago, right calf. Man, these calf issues turn in, it's something that turns, if you don't take care of those, the calf turns into the Achilles and all that other stuff's all connected. You got to be super careful with those, man. So Nacua is just somebody that, he's a great, great player, but I hope he doesn't. He's already been kind of like, I'm not going to say injury prone, but injury friendly, I guess. Would be the name to say about that. But
he's only 2 years in the league. He's been banged up multiple times already. And he's kind of, the issue for him is he's a physical wide receiver. Right. So when guys play physical like him and they get banged up and constantly are nicked up, it's frustrating. I traded for Puka in a couple leagues, even though I'm not like the biggest Puka guy. I got some decent offers earlier in the year, and I was like on some teams that were just struggling with injuries. So I said, I'll take Puka while he's on IR. This team is probably going nowhere anyway. And I made a couple moves. I think it was a good move in a few situations. There's a couple other ones I'm like, I kind of wish I wouldn't have made the trade now, but I still think I got solid value. One of the trades was Chris Joel Smith. I think I traded Brian Thomas Jr., which I'm kicking myself because I like him so much. I'm kicking myself that I got rid of him.
Yeah. I'm still trying to get Brian Thomas Jr. everywhere, but
I've got him in a bunch of leagues.
Oh, good for you.
I tell you what, the one league that I got him in that I probably totally blew it was a 2 QB league where at the beginning of the year my starters were Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, and I didn't take Bo Nix. I took Brian Thomas instead of Bo Nix because I just didn't believe in Bo Nix, and that one I'm gonna regret. As you saw, I had to make a trade later in the year as Fields stopped starting.
Yeah.
T-Law got hurt. I had to trade for Mac Jones. I had to trade for Darnold. So that one I'm going to regret. Even though I love Thomas, I'm glad I have him on my team. I saw the stack with T-Law, and my eyes got wide. And I was like, I got to take him. And I skipped out on Knicks, and that one hurt me.
Yeah. Well, it's all right. It's a good consolation prize anyway, so you're fine. Tight ends, Will Dissly. AC shoulder, week or two, it's
another guy I had a ton of teams on when he went out injury. That one hurt.
Yeah, that hurts. So that's about all for the big injuries this week. I mean, it was big enough. It just felt like it was absolutely terrible across the whole league with the buys and with the injuries that happened. It was
the injuries were brutal on their own, but like I said, with 6 teams on bye week, I mean, there was no one to replace guys with. And even if you did, there were so many a few late games. If you didn't catch one of those injuries right away, like you had no one to replace guys with. It was rough sledding. And John, I know we talked about this just briefly off air, but how can the NFL not figure out the scheduling?
Bullshit.
I mean, this is absolutely insane. There is no reason to have weeks with 6 teams off. There is no reason for it.
Well, I'm not going to say there's 2 weeks.
They do have 2 weeks where they don't have any bye, and then they do these 6 weeks. They really and I know fantasy football is probably something they don't really care about, but they got to understand that's what's bringing a lot of attention to the NFL. When they added that extra game, they screwed everybody by moving the bye weeks later on too. Oh, I hate it. They really need to get these week 13 needs to be the last week with buys. They need to figure that out. They need to make it where it's 4 teams max on a bye in a week. Thursday night games, the European games, those games should be a bye the week before to make it better. We have AI. I know they used to hand do all these schedules, but we have so much technology out there. There is no way they can't put this in a computer and figure this out better.
Right.
There's got to.
I'm going to say there's only 1 week with no buys because of the fact that the one
I know they did
no
on Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, they have a bunch of games on Thursday and a bunch of games on. There's 6 teams that play on Thursday, or what is it? 6 or 8? There's 3 or 4 games on Thanksgiving. There's 3, right?
There's 3, so yeah, I have 6 teams playing on Thursday.
So and they have 2 Monday night games. So I understand that week and no buys, because everybody's playing all the time. The other one is like week 5 or 6 or something like that. So they got to figure that out. Or some weeks that only have 3 teams on buys, or
it needs to be like week 4 to like 12. If they're going to have Thanksgiving be no one on a bye, then the buys need to stop. Then you don't do buys, and then the next week you have 6 teams off. It's ridiculous. And then they had 6 teams off the week before that. So you're going into the playoffs, and you're two of the last 3 weeks you got 1 million teams off on bye. It's terrible. They gotta. I understand they're trying to get some of these teams healthy and stuff, but it's too late in the year at this point, man. They gotta fix that.
I understand that
really annoying.
The NFL really makes their money on ticket sales, but I guarantee you there's millions and millions and millions of more people that play fantasy football than actually go to football games.
That don't go to games, that pay attention and watch me and stuff because of it. It's a big factor. I mean, fantasy for football and gambling for football are 2 of the biggest reasons that football is the most popular sport in America.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, those are the 2 of the hugest things that go with football that you don't get a lot of in other leagues. And so I understand we don't, they don't want to do everything for us fantasy people, but they need to start taking some of that into account a little bit. It's ridiculous.
Yep. All right, so let's go to the waivers here, okay? A guy I just traded away for Jonathan Brooks, like we talked about a minute ago, Sincere McCormick. He's going to have some opportunity anyway, let's just say that. Patrick Taylor for the 49ers, somebody else who, I don't know what.
Everybody's going to be running out and picking up him this week. Hey, is there a guy Izzy? Are we going to get to see him? Are we going to get to see him? I was like, oh my God, John. I was like, what if he gets in there? What if he gets in there and crushes? You're gonna be like, I told everybody.
He's on my team.
I told everybody.
He's on my team.
When that name popped up that he got pulled off the practice squad of the Jets, I was like, oh my God. I was like, here we go, John. Here we go.
I was gonna rename my team the Izzy Abandacanda Fan Club just this week.
Dude, if Gary Endo can't go, man, it's going to be real interesting to see if they try to work him in at all.
his biggest knock is he's not big a receiving back. He's just a like early down plotter. But I mean, whatever. My leagues give points for touchdowns, but he caught a couple balls anyway. So I mean, he's not terrible at it, but he's not a receiver. He's a good. He can dump off passes and stuff. But I still love the dude, man. He ran like a 4.40 at Pitt. So I mean, what the hell, man?
Hey, with the way the running back's been able to play for the Niners, get him back there, man. He could run for 100 yards. I was laughing. I saw this stat. It was like, however many games since they've had a 100-yard rusher. It was like a bunch of teams, like the Broncos hadn't had a 100-yard rusher in forever. It was like they were like showing all these teams that hadn't had 100. I'm like, are the Niners going to have like 4 guys go for over 100 in the same season? 4 different guys, while other teams haven't gone like 2 or 3 years without a running back running for 100 yards at all. I'm like,
right.
Just freaking wild. Oh, Will's got another trade. He did. He said a guy offered him Puka Nacua straight up for Pacheco, full PPR 2 weeks ago. Smash accept. Absolutely. I had Pacheco and I was trying to sell him for 2 seconds. I'm not a huge Pacheco guy. And so I just was like rebuilding. I wanted more draft picks because I wanted to try to get a couple rookie running backs in the second round because I love this running back class coming in. And so I ended up having to do a second and a swap, a second for a third in order to get me 2 seconds for him. But I love that trade. That's a great trade. I double smash through the table. Like, those are the ones you're hitting so quick. You're like, before he takes it down, before he takes it back, I gotta hit it.
That is one of the. I mean, Pacheco. What does he got left the rest of this year, and then maybe he's got a spot next year?
Well, that's my worry. Is it's not that he hasn't been solid. He has been, but we've seen what the Chiefs do at running backs. They just don't care. I could see them going out and drafting another guy this year. So while he's been solid, I just think I was real worried that they draft somebody and they end up letting him go after this next year. So I was trying to trade him for whatever I could to someone that needed him coming back. Because he was one of those trades I made earlier in the year. I traded DeAndre Swift away and took Pacheco back in a deal. I got Puka and Pacheco because they were both on IR. I traded away Tyreek Hill and DeAndre Swift for that move. So I was trying to get a little younger with the idea that I'd turn around and trade Pacheco too after I got Puka. So,
I mean, Pacheco's a good running back, but the way he runs, he's just not going to last long. He's got a short lifespan. You can't run like a rhinoceros and then just, expect to have a long. You can see he had a leg injury, which is not part of that crazy running style he has, but he's due for a concussion or he's due for some like.
Well, my worry is that they're not going to want to pay a running back, and so when his deal comes up, they're just going to let him go, and they'll draft a young guy that's cheap. And then who knows where he goes? You know what I'm saying? That's the problem with a guy like that. You're like, well, what if he ends up on is he going to get the Miles Sanders treatment? Are you going to go like, I ran for 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns for the Eagles. Then all of a sudden I go to Carolina and I'm terrible.
Right.
Like, is that going to happen to him? Does he do something like that? And then he ends up on a bad team and then goes for nothing in a year. So I wasn't willing to take the chance. I wanted some rookie running backs. So I made the move.
Take Bigsby, somebody else. I'm not. I've never been a Tank Bigsby fan.
I've never been a Tank guy, but he got me a touchdown. I had to play him in a league where all my guys were on bye, and I had no other running backs. And so Tank came through with me for a score this week. So I'll give it to him for that. Man, ATN, how frustrated are you if you're an ATN owner? It's
I tried trading for early in the season because I had Trevor Lawrence figuring I get one more year. It's a win now year. Why not? But not happening, bro. Not happening. Braylon Allen, my favorite player, probably this year's draft. He's not getting the usage he wanted because of Breece Hall, but whatever. Isaiah Davis also in that mix, but I'm not a big Isaiah Davis guy at all.
How they just went? Davis was like in the game the whole game. Like it's probably because they were down and they were trying to come back. But it's like I was waiting for the Braylon Allen show. I was like, man, pound the rock with him all game, and he had a decent game. But like every time I looked up, it was Isaiah Davis in the game, and I'm like, of course he's the one guy I didn't go out and pick up everywhere on waivers this week, and of course he had a great game. So, I was a little shocked to see how much playing time he got.
Yep, Kendre Miller. I've never been a Kendre Miller guy either. Another guy that I'm killing. If he ends up being something, it's great, but I'm going to stay away from Kendre Miller. I'm not a big Miller guy, but
If you got him and you can sell him after that touchdown last week, somebody likes him.
Right.
Get rid of him.
And then, okay, let's jump to receivers. Adam Thielen, somebody that is old but can win you right. He's still a solid play. MVS, now that Derek Carr's gone, I'm not sure MVS is going to have any value whatsoever anymore. I'll jump back to irrelevancy. Josh Palmer. I thought Josh Palmer was going to have this awesome season this year. I traded for him everywhere in a whole bunch of leagues for late third-round picks, and, man, he just kind of shit the bed. So it is what it is.
Had a decent game the other night, but they basically had to throw him the ball because they didn't have anybody else. McConkey out, Disley out. I mean, basically they're struggling. Man, we need to see the Chargers get a really good tight end or another wide receiver for Justin Herbert next year. I'd love to see my boy Luther Burden from Missouri end up there. I think he'd be awesome on the Chargers.
Wow. Or one of the better tight ends. I mean,
that's either him or like a Colson Loveland or Ty Warren. I think one of those guys would be awesome on the Chargers. I would love to see either one of those guys on the Colts. Man, Colts need help at tight end.
Yeah.
I'm going to think about this for a long time, John, on how the Colts missed out on Brock Bowers by 2 picks. I still think they would have taken him if he got to him at 15.
Because, that's all they do is draft tight ends all the time, so why wouldn't they?
I know, it's like they love tight ends. I'm like, how do you not take the top tight end that's
the best one ever?
Been out forever. Dude, as he was falling in the draft, I mean, he didn't get taken in the top 10. I was like, if the Colts get him. And there was talk of the Colts trying to move up to possibly get him, and they couldn't get a deal done.
Do you think maybe they didn't think the Raiders were going to take a tight end?
I don't think they did.
Okay, this is great.
I don't think they did. I think they thought they had to move up inside the top 12, and when it didn't happen, I think they thought like, okay, maybe he'll get to us. And then when the Raiders took him, I think they were like, what? Like, I think they were just hoping he would get one more spot to them at 15.
The Colts,
but I also think,
98% of America the same.
But
thing,
you also got to look at it. Like, how crazy was that draft last year? The first 14 picks were offensive players. Like, that almost never happened. So, for the Colts to be like, not one person went defense in that to get a guy to drop to us. Man, I tell you what, I'd have my Brock Bowers jersey on right now. He would have been.
Sure, you would. I'd probably have one too.
That
would be great. All right.
What year he's had. And how about this, John? Let's talk about this as we're jumping around here. Michael Mayer, your boy. I just wrote about him in my Fantrax article about one of the Dynasty Fallers. He was one of my Dynasty Fallers, and he comes out and absolutely punches me in the face and gets 2 touchdowns this week. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy who was like, go out and buy him if you can. I still think he can exist on the Raiders. I still think there's a world where him and Bowers get it together and they play both of those guys, go like old school Patriots when they were playing multiple tight ends and both guys were being, productive. I still think that's a possibility. But for some reason, if the Raiders move him, I still think he's got talent. I picked him up in a ton of leagues, especially when people were dropping him or like willing to move him and like as a added piece in trades. I was grabbing him everywhere. He's still young. Guy's only in his second year. High second round draft pick. Come on. He's still got talent, man. It looks pretty good. Last week, sitting on my bench in all my leagues.
81% of the snaps he's on the field for. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 70 yards, 68 yards, I think something like that. But 21
and a couple TVs.
Premium. Yeah, so stud. Yeah, absolutely. But that's he's on my teams. That's all I can be happy for right now. So
I know you own a lot of them, and I got quite a bit. I picked up quite a bit of them in the offseason, if I could.
It's not very often Notre Dame players end up being fantasy studs, but that's I still chase after them anyway. I'm like a bee to honey with those with Notre Dame players. I'm Notre Dame like you're like Syracuse or U of I or shit like that. That kind of thing. So. A couple more tight ends here anyway. Juwan Johnson, just because of the situation, I think you're going to have to, with no Taysom Hill and a lot of wide receivers out. I mean, it's going to have to targets have to go somewhere. So,
Juwan if you're Johnson, in a deeper league, I started in a couple leagues. If you're in a deeper league, he's a guy that you're probably going to throw in there as your tight end or one of your flexes because he's going to get some targets down the stretch here.
Hunter Henry, Grant Calcaterra, just because of the Dallas Goedert is going to be out for a minute probably. So that's it. Jameis Winston, Like he's not already on all my teams already, but I'll just let you know, Jameis Winston is someone to grab. And the other quarterbacks, I'm not sure any of the other quarterbacks that are filling in right now are going to be humongous, fantasy values anyway. It's kind of the end of the season now. The teams that have.
I tell you what, Johnny, my guy Drew Lock, he has looked awful the first 3 quarters the last 2 weeks, and then he has looked great in the fourth quarter in back-to-back weeks. It's like, can we just get the fourth quarter Drew Lock all the time? It's like he finally starts completing passes. He's running the ball, leads them down to what should have been a game-tying field goal, and of course it gets blocked by a 310-pound D lineman who jumps over the line and gets the block. That was wild, breezy. I was like, whoa. I was like, that was pretty impressive. But he's got you some points. Not good. It's not been great. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It hasn't been great. But he's actually scored you some garbage points in the end of the last 2 weeks.
I'm so sick of false hope for these quarterbacks who come in and they get all their fantasy values when they're playing against a prevent defense at the end of the game. And like, look, he threw 3 touchdowns. Yeah, he threw 3 touchdowns when the team was already up by 3 touchdowns. They didn't give a shit anymore. They were just trying to run the clock out and let the team score a little bit and run and play defense. But I like Drew Lock too. I know you're a big Drew Lock fan also, but I wish he'd get a shot somewhere. But I think
I wish so too. I think the window is closing.
Yes.
I think it's like it's damn near done.
When you can't do anything on the field until the fourth quarter, that just kind of shows that you're not going to get a start. You're a backup. You are where you are. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
I would love to see it, but I just don't. I just think that's like the more I watch, the more I see. I'm like, man, he's just not going to get a shot. There's just no way. He's not playing well enough when he's getting the opportunities for someone to give him more of a shot. It's frustrating, but it is what it is.
I'm also the way Jameis Winston's been playing the last couple of weeks with the interceptions and shit like that. As much as I want him to get a shot somewhere else, I think he's as good as he is, as much as he throws, as much as everything. He's a good fantasy quarterback, but I don't think a team could put all their eggs in one basket and make him the starting quarterback somewhere. I just don't think he just makes too many. He just makes too many mistakes, and I love the dude to death. As you know, I'm the number one supporter of the Jameis Winston fan club, but I think he's just better off as a backup. Fill in a couple weeks.
I can't see a GM putting their job on the line, going, "Yeah, Jameis is our guy." You know what I mean? It's like there's just so much to lose with him. It's like you like him, and he's a fun player, but I just I don't see a lot of GMs going out and above saying like, this is our guy. We got to sign him to a long-term deal. I just don't see it. Oh, looks like we just lost John there. So hopefully he gets back in. So there he is. You're back.
Yeah, my internet.
Lost you for a second there.
What the hell's going on with this internet in my house? But it is what it is. So
you're back. We're good to go.
I am back. All right, so let's jump to any other kind of news and rumors and stuff like that you hear around the NFL right now. What's going on, like the plans for guys next year? Like I think we talked about like the Sam Darnold and the Jameis Winston, things like that. So no other really news. Nobody really got in trouble, nothing like that. So I think what we want to do is I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll talk about some rules first, and then we'll go into trades depending on how much time we got left. But I went this morning, if you look on my Twitter page, John McGlynn 75, I've been going league by league, each individual league, and I put out a video of my league rules and what happened throughout in my leagues themselves that I run on the commissioner. I put a bunch of rules in there, so it's not just all by points or not just by win-loss record, which JT's got some stories about points and win-loss records and not making the playoffs.
Johnny, it was brutal. I thought I was going through all my leagues last night, trying to figure out what I made playoffs, which ones I didn't. I actually did really well in my redraft and my charity leagues. I think I was 8 out of 9 and 7 out of 9 I made the playoffs in. But man, my dynasty leagues were brutal. I went back and I looked at them, and I was down to the last week, which is another reason I'm pissed, because I went down the last week to make the playoffs in a ton of leagues, and I had so many guys on bye trying to make it in. I had 9 leagues where I either tied for the last playoff spot and lost the tiebreaker, or I lost the last game that knocked me out of the playoffs because I lost the end. So 9 different leagues. Either was like 7-7 or like 8-6 or right in that range, and then didn't make the playoffs either by points or by a head-to-head tiebreaker where I lost last week to the guy who jumped me. So 9 freaking different leagues. Oh, it was rough.
So I run all my leagues with I have 4 divisions. So all 4 division winners get if you win your division and you are the highest, if you're like 11-3 right now and you win your division, and nobody else has 11-3 record, you win your division, you get a first round bye, and then the number 2 seed also wins their division and gets a first round bye, and you get 4% of the money for that, and then you get 4% of the money for getting the bye also. So you get 8% of the money for winning your division first, and then getting the bye. You get double reward for being number 1 and 2 seed. Number 3 and 4 seed, those are also division winners. So they get 4% of the money, which ends up being about half the entrance fee. So that's a little bit of a kind of a good for you. But then my last two playoff spots are for the winners bracket anyway, are for it's not max points for, but points for, real points for. So if you're tanking, you're not going to start your best lineup all the time or that kind of stuff. You get the max points for is going to be what it is, but your points for. So a guy named Joe Castleman, he didn't make the playoffs. His team was pretty good, but he had like 3,048 points, which was better than a lot of the teams that made the playoffs. His team was really good, but he just had bad luck as far as one-on-one matchups. Then the second playoff spot, listen to this. Tim Kozlowski had 2,847.73, 2,847.73, and then Jason Tedesco had 2 less losses. He's got 2,847.65. That's a difference of 0.08 points. So out of the entire season of 14 games, Jason Tedesco is out of the playoffs because of 0.08 points. How awesome is that? I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. That's the kind of shit that you set this shit up for. So you have I don't want wins and losses or nothing but points. These are scenarios that kind of totally screw somebody over as far as that goes. But I love it. I love these adjustments. And now what happens here now also in these leagues?
Well, John, I was like laughing in our league that I'm in with you, that you run. I finished last in my division, but I actually outscored the winner of other divisions. I was like, I finished last, and then I outscored the winner of the other divisions. I was pissed. I was like, because I actually think my team is pretty solid in that league. And I'm right there in points scored and everything with other guys, but yeah, just haven't been able to get over the hump. I got a crazy trade offer in Baby and Boomers. You want me to bring it up on the show or no?
Have at it.
Should we?
Let me finish my scenarios here, and then we'll go to trades. But so what also is we get the teams that did not make the playoffs, like Bird lost by 0.08 points, so he's in the shit bowl. So what I do then is I get first of all, if you win the toilet bowl, you get pick 113. It's one of the leagues is pick 213 because the whole league said it's too much advantage to give the 113, which I disagree with, but that's why everything goes to a vote in my leagues because I want everybody to be happy or everybody to kind of say yes or no. And I don't care if it's 113 or 213, whatever they want. It is what it is. That's not going to kill me. I traded that pick away anyway, so I'm glad it's 213. So, what happens if you have the most max points for, but you did not make the playoffs? You get a percentage of the lottery balls. So if you're the number 1 seed in the loser bracket, you get 5 of 96 lottery balls. And if you're the number 2 seed, you get 10 of 96 lottery balls. If you're the 3rd seed, you're 12 of 96 lottery balls. The 4th seed is 15 of 96 lottery balls. 20 is the 5th seed is 20, and the 6th seed is actually 34 individual lottery balls for that. So I've had it before where guys have traded all this. They've had like three of the they had 34, 20, and 15 chances at the lottery, and they end up getting 4, 5, and 6. They did not. So the person with the 5 lottery balls, I think it was 2 years ago, 4 of my individual drafts, the person who only had 5 chances ended up getting the 101. So which was crazy cool. It had so much drama to the league when you have these kind of scenarios with lottery picks. I have a little lottery machine. It's got 96 balls in there. We all gather up, have beers, get sandwiches at one of the local bars. And then, bam, that's it. So, it's not mandatory. I'll videotape it and put it on all the sites too, individual pages. But I run all of my draft lotteries on one day at the same bar. Everybody can show up, drink beer, eat food, whatever. And then I do the lotteries. But this is what part of an exciting part of your fantasy football leagues. And if you have home leagues, this is something you probably should be implementing in your league. that stuff. And monetary values. I'm not a big fan of like spreading out monetary values, but at the same time, I think people should be rewarded for winning their division. So that's why all division winners get like 4%. So that's one thing I like to do. What's your favorite thing you do in your home leagues, JT, that nobody else really does? I mean, it doesn't really need necessarily, we're talking about fantasy football right now, but it could be any of your baseball or hockey or anything like that too.
I don't even think crazy. One of my big things I've been complaining about, and I still stand on this, I think the last playoff spot has to be something on with overall points. I mean, I had one league where I outscored the guy that finished third by like 200 or 300 points, and I finished second to last.
Yeah.
It's like, I was like 2-12, and he was 11-3, and I outscored him by like 200 or 300 points. It's just like terrible matchups. I was like number one in the league in points against, and he was number one in like least points scored against him. So I had two that were in. One I finished second in scoring, and one I finished fourth in scoring, and I didn't make the playoffs in either of them. I was pretty pissed about that. So I think you got to have, if you're in a league where you don't have the last pick of the playoffs, last team of the playoffs, make the playoffs because of points scored, overall points, I push you to change that. It does keep teams in it, and it does help when your team, you have a good team and just get bad matchups every week. I just think it's brutal when that happens. So that's my big pet peeve is like not having at least one playoff spot. In a lot of my leagues that I run, I had the final two playoff spots be points. But I can understand where people want records to count for a little bit more. So maybe just the last spot is total overall points, but it usually keeps people in it. And then obviously I think the team that gets absolutely screwed on the scheduling sometimes that helps out. So that's a big one for me. The other one, like you said earlier, I always think you want to do something for your consolation or toilet bowl that keeps people involved, especially in Dynasty League, keep people moving, whether that's winning an extra pick. I know in one of my Dynasty Leagues, we do 7-round rookie draft because we do IDP, so we have a longer rookie draft than other ones. But we do, when you lose, so teams can't just bomb out and get the worst record to get the number one pick. You do lottery balls. In one of my leagues, we actually have a 4-team tournament for the teams that don't make the playoffs, and they fight for that number one pick. Whoever wins that actually wins the number one pick. So you can, as the worst team, kind of get screwed and get like the fourth pick instead of the number one pick, but you then will get the number one pick in every other round. So I kind of try to make it even that way, in that you still get a higher pick in the other rounds, but it's not like, hey, I trade all my assets away, I end up with the worst record, and so I automatically get the number one pick. You still got to try and kind of hold on and do something in order to kind of win that number one pick. So that's one of the things I do in my leagues to kind of, try to get, you don't want people full on tanking, especially down league. You don't want people just getting rid of their whole team and then they're bums for years and then they want to drop out of the league because their team is never able to fix. Luckily, in my league, we've actually had multiple times where a team had a good team, had a bad year, just because we have a very competitive league, had a bad year and then turned around and went from last to first. So we've actually had that happen 4 times in our league where a team finished last and then turn around and won the league the very next year. So
Tim George,
it does happen.
Tim George, who's in our Babies and Boomers league, took over an orphan that some guy got fucking butthurt and left our league because of stupid shit. You know, I'm not going to say his name anymore, but when Tim George took over this team that was absolutely garbage, and he turned around, he made the playoffs this year. In 1 year, he traded draft picks away, traded players away, traded everything, made a bunch of good moves. It was, and he was, you know how Tim is on the message board too. So he kept it fun. He's been a great part. He's been such a great addition, such a great upgrade over the last person. It's been nice to have Tim in the league. But he made the playoffs. He snuck in there. He got it by points, not by record, not by winning his division, but he got it by points. So congratulations, Tim George. Great job there.
Yeah, me and him made a lot of trades at the draft last year. We were wheeling and dealing at our draft last year, expecting more of the same this year.
Yeah, I think he's at the point now where he doesn't have a lot more assets. You have to wait for his 27s to be available.
Yeah, he was making a lot of trades for picks last year. He was going all in. I made a couple moves with him. That's
the problem, is at some point in time you become stagnant because you have no other assets to move minus what you have in your team. So That's all right. I mean, it is what it is. You got to spend 1 year of just kind of grinding out. That's when you take your lumps, or you win the league 2 years in a row, kind of thing like that. But or you really, man, you take your lumps on that kind of situation. You have when your guys get hurt and you have no draft picks coming up. That's things for a couple of years, but it is what it is. That's what you got to play the game that way. Another thing is trade vetoes. We talked about this earlier about no trade vetoes. Some people say there should be no trade vetoes in the playoffs. I disagree there because of the fact that, our picks are tradable for like 2-3 years down the road. I don't understand why you would stop trading during the playoffs. I think that for a team that's rebuilding, that's really the chance to get guys when the iron is absolutely hot. When somebody's just grabbing you by the short and curlies, because right now there's been so many injuries, so many bye weeks. There's been like 15 trades this week alone in my leagues because I think a lot of people are trading right now, but there's no trading in redraft leagues. Some people stop the trading, in the week 12 all the way throughout the playoffs. My leagues have been trading going nuts right now because of the fact that they can. I just had, Devin A. Chain in a second for early first and a second because somebody didn't have running backs, the kind of things like that. Why would you not allow trading throughout the playoffs if you don't trust your players? But I mean, I just got burned trading for Jonathan Brooks last week, 4 days ago. You never know what's going to happen. Who are you to say something you could see inside some kind of crystal ball? What's going to happen a year or two from now? What it is? These are they're paying. They want to be happy with their team. They want to be happy with what they created. I mean, it's their masterpiece. Let them paint. It's none of your business to tell people what they can and can't do. If you got a league with a bunch of people you're afraid they're going to lose, they're going to leave because of the fact that you don't run a good league, that's your problem. You have to figure something out there. But my job is to say, hey, let's make this league as fun as possible. And a trade deadline, cutting off a trade deadline is shit. I mean, it's a garbage. I think a garbage way of running a league because you're taking out a lot of fun, especially this time of year when it's kind of getting this time of year for a lot of people. They're sick of setting lineups. Leagues are getting a little bit stagnant. This is the most exciting time of the year right now. For the last couple of weeks of the regular season, going into playoffs and the playoffs themselves. Right now, guys in the playoffs are going to do whatever they possibly can to win. They're going to trade away their first 2 years from now, their other seconds, third, anything on the roster to win right now. This is where the guys who are bottom feeders right now trying to rebuild are going to make hay, man. This is when it's time to go fish, throw the nets in the water right now and get all them picks, man, because that's what you need to rebuild.
John, I actually had this conversation in a couple of my leagues because I agree with you somewhat there, but I've also been on the other side of that. So most of my leagues, I allow trading all the way up to the playoffs. And then once the playoffs are set, guys can't trade during the playoffs. Now, I'm in a couple of leagues where people are like, hey, why can't we trade in the playoffs? And, we've had some back and forth on why that's a good idea or why it's not. You just made a really good point of why it's a good idea because guys can go out there, rebuild, can give up more, and guys are willing to give up more. Now, the other side of that is you actually have a lot of leagues that, you run the leagues, the guys personally, so you have a pretty good idea who's coming back and you can trust with the guys. My big complaint about trading in the playoffs is I was in a couple of leagues that allowed you to trade during the playoffs. And it became a free for all. And then what happened was we constantly had turnover in the league because guys would trade their whole team away, all their picks, do anything once they made the playoffs to try to win it. And if they didn't win it, or even if in some cases when they did win it, they would just drop out of the league the next year because they're like, oh, well, I unloaded all my guys for old players, blah, blah, blah. And we had just a ton of turnover because everybody was just like making 8 million trades in the playoffs, trying to one up the other guy. The guy they were playing would trade for the best player from the team that they just beat. And then that team would try to trade the next player. And granted, if you're trying to rebuild, it was really nice for you as a rebuild, being able to steal some guys or some draft picks. But we had major problems where every year we were filling 2, 3, 4 spots because guys would trade away everybody and then drop out of the league. So that's my biggest contention. And I tell people this all the time. I'm usually more anti-trading in the playoffs, but I also, if you feel real confident in your league and all the guys, people aren't going to drop, then I feel like that's a situation where I wouldn't be totally against it because I had a couple of leagues. Guys were like, hey, I'm in leagues that allow us for playoffs. We don't have problems with anybody dropping. I'm like, if you have that type of league and all your guys that are in your league and that it's not going to be that type of situation, I have no problem with the trading in the playoffs. But those are some of the bad things I've seen in the past is guys just going, Well, the ones that are big too are the guys that like just barely sneak in the playoffs and then go make just outlandish trades
Yeah.
because they're just trying to sneak by week to week to week to the next week, and then they're like, "Oh, this team's trash. I'm out of here." You're like,
Yeah.
"Oh," because they realize, "Oh, I just took a team that barely made the playoffs, traded every asset I would have for the next 2 years away, and now all of a sudden I'm sitting here with an old team that barely made the playoffs that lost." And is basically a 5-year rebuild. It's like, and and then the other problem is the commish. You have to find someone to take that team. That isn't
Yeah.
easy. When you have no assets, you traded everybody away. I mean, I'm in a couple leagues that I did that. I took on an orphan, and I'm like, I'm looking at those teams now, and I'm like, man, do I want to stay in these leagues and keep building these like garbage teams that I took over, trying to be? And they were like, oh, we really need somebody last minute, and I like took these teams over. I'm like, I don't even know if I want to put more time and effort into them, especially because they're not team. It's different when you're building and you built the team and you drafted young and you were like had a plan, but you're just taking on these random ass teams and trying to figure out what to do with them. So I was going to ask you that question. So I'm glad you brought it up. So you're in the yes, keep trading open the whole time. I totally understand that. I'm for the most part, especially if I'm in leagues with guys I don't personally know, I'm in to cut the trade deadline off as soon as the playoffs start. Like, go all the way up to the playoffs. I have no problem. Even if you want to do the first week of the playoffs, like let people trade before the playoff games start. But like once the playoffs get going, that's where I get a little nervous about it. So I usually bring it up to a vote. Most of the people in my leagues, for those same reason, voted not to let trading happen during the playoffs.
Oh man, it takes so much fun out of this time of the year, man. It's just like I guess the thing about the in-person leagues all the time is that I've been in 100 different fucking leagues. I've got a waiting list of guys to just start new leagues with that I can input. But I used to think there's some people who actually love taking on shitty orphans. I mean, it's one of those things where they're like, yes, the worse the orphan, the better. It's like a challenge for them.
Yeah, challenge to rebuild it.
When you're in like, when you're in like 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 leagues, whatever. So yeah, it's too hard to concentrate when I'm over 20 leagues now. I'm in 24 leagues now, and it's just too hard to concentrate with, especially with the C2C things starting to get into I tried figuring out IDP this year. It's not for everybody, but some people who love it absolutely love it. The college side just is so much better to me, and I think I'm going to concentrate a lot more on that than I will be like improving my team over the summertime when the NFL season is over with or the NFL fantasy side is over with. But I don't know. It's easier for me to just find a friend who's in a different league with me or guys who are interested in fantasy football from this area to jump in and be part of people like being at a live draft where you put stickers on a board and you drink beer with your friends and stuff like that. It's a little bit different than just playing online.
Yeah. Well, a live draft's the way to go. I mean, if you can do a live draft, we've talked about this in the past. I mean, that's the absolute best thing. It's so easy to do it online. It's hard to get everybody together. Even mine, where most of the guys in my leagues all live like pretty close together. I can't hardly get any of these guys to show up to a live draft. It's unbelievable anymore. There's too many kids and this. Oh, the wives of this. I'm like, you guys can't cut out like 3 hours one day of the year, but it's like somehow it seems impossible. But yeah, these leagues where you're on with a bunch of people you don't know, man, it's tough. And like I said, I have no problem rebuilding. Like me and my cousin have a team. We build up from the ground up. We took over an orphan. Like our number one pick in the dispersal draft was Andrew Luck the year he retired. He was our number one pick. We had a bunch of other. Antonio Brown was our pick in that league. That's when he started going off the deep end. This team just fell apart on us. It was a disaster from the beginning. We've built this team up for like 7 years now. We never made the playoffs. It's been a struggle. Last year we finished dead last, and the very next year we make the playoffs. We make the championship game. We lose the championship game after finishing dead last, and then this year, with the number one overall scoring points team, finished second by one game in the regular season, got the bye, and in the playoffs. So, like, there is something to say about that when you built that team up from scratch. That was terrible, and now you're making some of it. There is some pride there. So I have no problem building a team. It's just sometimes it's frustrating. Like you said, once you get over a certain amount of leagues, it's hard to work the waiver wire and make these picks, especially if you're in leagues with a bunch of people you don't know. It's hard to know who is more willing to trade, who's not, especially you get in these big leagues that are like multiple copy. And that's a couple of the ones I'm in. They're like 24 teams, 36 teams, 48 teams, like trying to figure out who can trade and who won't. Sometimes you just run out of time working just be able to work the trade, talks with people, just being able to figure that out. So
it takes 2 or 3 years of getting in the league to understand that people aren't dickheads, that they want to like they're not like, don't send that trade to me. It takes a couple years to kind of understand like, oh, now I know what this guy's thinking, what's going through his head, or why he makes these trades this way, or what his build is, or people get so pissed off when they join a league and see people send them like what they consider shitty trades. And it's like, man, sometimes they are shit trades. Don't get me wrong. I send out my fair share of shit trades. Don't get me wrong. But everybody in my league, like 4 or 5 years into it, people just know that which ones are shit, which one if I send out Israel Abanikanda for a 5th round pick in 2026 yesterday to somebody, and they're like, he might have a starting job. What's going on? Well, I'm going to tell you this much. The guy I sent it to is I talked about it. We're going to start with the trades now. I guess I'll into this. He traded away Devin Achane and a 2025 second, which will be like an early second. So Devin Achane and an early second, but he got my first this year, which is probably I think it's like third. I'm in the toilet bowl. It's like the third pick, but it's in a lottery, so you never know. I have like 12 balls and a late 2020 second. But this guy. One guy is going for the championship who got Achane in the second, but the guy who traded for the early first, he's got 11 of the 12 first-round picks this year in the draft. So he's got one more to go until he gets the entire J-Mike first round of the entire draft, and he'll have all rookie picks coming in the NFL next year. So all rookie picks for the first round. And he's got like 5 second-round picks too. So this guy kind of sold the whole team away, but, man, he's about 4 trades away from having the entire first and second round all to himself.
Well, and that's nice, but you got to have that draft hit, right? So it's like, it's nice to have all those rookie picks. It's nice to make those moves, but man, just because you have a young team on all high picks doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to hit. That's the toughie. You got to make sure you're getting there. You got a good draft. You don't want to. It's like you end up trading for all the draft picks. It's the one draft that sucks. Like no one hits.
Oh man,
it's like kills it. I do like this draft class better than some people do, but it's they're always going to get complaints.
So I made this trade. This is the team that I had the shit first round pick, which I don't even have right now, which kind of screwed me over. But I got Jerome Ford, who I like. I don't think it'll be anything more than like a third down complimentary back kind of thing, minus if somebody gets hurt somewhere. But he's already 25 or 26 now? He's 25. And I got Kayshon Boutte in an early, like a 301 is probably what it's going to be. Boutte he's on the field for like almost every play now. I don't know if he's going to be an MVS, just like a decoy kind of thing like that, or what the story is, but being on the field is half the battle.
Mm-hmm.
So I traded away.
This Patriots team is going to be interesting in this offseason, kind of what they do with the wide receivers. Another year with May. They got a lot of these young guys. Do they go out and draft a few more guys? You figure they would. This Pope kind of step up second year, Boutte, in there. You got Baker, who didn't really do anything this year. I mean, get a lot of guys. It's a wide open room over there. I mean, wide open.
So I traded away Dowdle. Which I don't need him right now. He's already 26. It'd be 27. And on top of that, is Dowdle 27 already? No, he's 26. Going to be 27. I think the Cowboys are bringing somebody else in for sure. They're going to have to start doing something on that team. Dowdle will not be the starting running back in Dallas. I'm not sure he'll ever be the lead back again. So Ford is just a guy I like. He's almost the same age, but to get Boutte in a 301 for Dowdle on top of Jerome Ford, I thought that was pretty good. Especially for somebody rebuilding. I think I did okay on that one.
I don't mind it.
No, I don't mind at all. And then you got another question on here on the.
Yep, I'll pop it up here. Yeah, it's just Out of Rhythm Fantasy Sports says, what are we doing with Jay Brooks since he tore his ACL? Talked about it a little bit earlier in the show. Thanks for jumping on here. Me and John traded for him in a few situations in the last couple of weeks. We were feeling like he was a nice buy as he wasn't playing. Now it just becomes what you think about him. Do you think he can come back? Obviously, they signed Chuba to a couple-year extension. He's probably going to be out, I would assume, at least the first half of next year. But if you believe in the talent, now might be the time to go get him. If you got somebody that needs a running back, needs somebody to play, and you can sit on him, That's not. He's a young guy. I talked about that earlier in the show. He was the youngest running outside of Braylon Allen. I think he was the second youngest running back in the draft last year. So he's only about 2021. So it isn't like he's an older back who just got hurt twice in a row either. So if you believe in him, you can go out and get him. Depending on the price for me, I'm a buyer depending on the price. John, what trade you said you just made for him a week ago?
I sent away Sincere McCormick and I sent away Isaac Garendo, and I got Jonathan Brooks. Now I'm on a completely rebuilding team, so I didn't care about I'm like, all right, whatever, have at it. This guy sent it to me because he's winning right now. I don't want the points in my roster. I want a lower draft pick. I want all this. I want all that stuff. And what am I going to? What the hell is Sincere McCormick and Isaac Garendo going to do in the next 2
not for
years?
you when you're losing. So yeah, I mean, would you trade if somebody had like a mid to late second? If somebody offered you that, like, would you offer that for Brooks? If you were trying to get Brooks, would you offer like a second? I mean, I wouldn't offer a first for him now with all the things going on. Would you offer a second? I feel like he's like a nice guy if you can put with like a package with something.
Man, I'm not giving away anything less than like a mid-third right now just because of the fact that he's going to be, especially if you don't have any IR spots in your league and he's taking up a roster spot for this whole year and most of next year.
No IR spots, that does hurt.
I don't know how my rosters are all 30 player deep with 5 to 10 IR spots, and some of them have taxi squads too. So if you had like a 16 or a 20, I mean, I see some of these dynasty rosters that are 16 spots. Like, what the hell is you playing dynasty? You only have 16 spots in the flex.
I'm in a couple leagues with like only like 20 or 22 roster spots, and it's like, we only have like 2 IR spots. It gets brutal trying to like figure out who to hold, who to get rid of, especially on the bye weeks. You're like, do I just eat it and not get points this week, or do I actually like drop a guy trying to go get someone? It's been rough.
You should have a minimum of 25 roster spots in a dynasty league with 12-team leagues with at least a 5-man IR. I mean, that's a start. And taxi squad probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have a 5-man taxi also, but I don't see the point of a taxi squad. I'd better just have them on my roster. Just give me 30 spots instead of a taxi squad. I mean, we talked about this before, what it's good for, what it's not good for. And MFL is a little bit different because you can separate the max points for with guys on taxi. On sleeper, they count, so I don't really see the point of it. It doesn't really matter. So what I'm doing with Jonathan Brooks, I'm going to try and get him everywhere. It's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to let him sit. Even if I'm contending right now, because I have 30-man rosters, the other problem is it all depends on how long it's going to be till they actually put them on IR. People need playoff spots right now. They can't pick up an extra waiver wire because they got Jonathan Brooks sitting there like just sucking up roster spot. And they can't move him to IR. So, I'm going to try now before he gets before they actually put him on IR to send probably a 3rd round pick and see what somebody does. Because if I'm willing to trade, some decent stuff, I'm not trading a second because I don't know how he's going to recover.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I'd take a second because I like a lot of the running backs we're going to go on the side. He says with 2020 draft class, I might overlook him more since it might be another year. Honestly, you might, if somebody's like desperate trying to get rid of him right now, I can see that. Depending on what happens with the drafts of these other rookie running backs, he could be an early buy next year when the season starts. He's out. Yeah. Everybody wants all these young rookie running backs. He might be a nice buy at that point to put somewhere, because it's going to be interesting to see where, I like this running back class and a lot of other people like this running back class, but does that mean the NFL loves this running back class? You never know. I mean, are we going to see 1 or 2 guys go in the first round? Are we going to see multiple 2nd, 3rd round picks? Or are we going to see kind of what happened last year where you got like 1 or 2 guys going kind of early and then everybody else was like a 4th, 5th, 6th round pick?
Yeah. Trey Benson was
you don't know. If there's a bunch of 2nd and 3rd rounders, people are going to be all over them for fantasy. If there's a bunch of guys all go in the 4th round again, well, that's not a death nail in the NFL like it used to be. It used to be your 4th round running back. You're like, yeah, this guy's not going to get a shot. Now, you're pretty much a backup or a chance at a starter, even as a 4th round pick. So depending on where these guys land is going to make a big, big difference, I think. So,
yeah. And
I could see after the, everybody gets fired up for this new draft class, I could see Brooks' value dropping even more. So it might be one of those things, if you don't have him, but you want to go get him, if you have time to wait on him, unless somebody is like desperate for somebody that they can play now and trying to get rid of them, because they got to have somebody to play for the playoffs, then I can see making the move now.
It's going to be awfully tough watching Lucas Perfetti spend my my top 5 pick when I got Jonathan Brooks sitting on my roster on my IR, and he's sucking up a stud running back in that spot. I'm not a patient person, man. The C2C leagues are kind of helping me with that, but man, it is what it is. So I'm going to trade for him, but I'm probably not going to give anything less than like a mid, probably a 303 to 3. Anything after 303, I'll probably make. If I get 3 and a third, 3 to 4,
I would probably
maybe
trade a third for him. The problem for me is I don't know if somebody's going to give him up for a third when they were probably taking him at the end of the first or beginning of the second round. People do get sick of guys, and now he's hurt again. Maybe somebody's like, screw it, I'll just get rid of him now. But
don't think for somebody else. Send that trade. You never know what somebody might be like. Hey.
Yes, you never know if somebody will take it or not. For me, I'm probably not doing a second just because I like a lot of guys I think that are going to possibly go in the second round. So,
all right, another trade. A contending team traded away their 26th first round pick, which I don't know where that's going to be, but he got Najee Harris. He imported Najee Harris in a win now and got rid of his 26th first. What would you rather have, 26th first or Najee Harris?
If I'm in win now, I had a couple people offer me some seconds and thirds for Najee's in a few league, and I just can't give up Najee for that. Now the question is, where does he end up? Do the Steelers re-sign him? Do the Steelers go draft the guy in the draft and move on from him? That's the toughie. I think Najee's highly underrated. I think he's a much better running back than people give him credit for. Yeah. He fights for a lot of yards he's getting hit right away. And he makes a lot of 1 yard carries into 3 yard carries that don't look pretty in the stat sheet, but you're like, he made something out of nothing there. So I like him. God, I could see that. I almost feel like you have to do that because I know I got offered like some seconds and thirds. I was like, I just can't give up Najee for that. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty fair trade. John, I got that one I want to throw out to you because I've got a guy in our league is just hammering me for Drake May, just on my ass for like the last 3 weeks on Drake May. And I don't know if I want to trade him because I traded out of the number 2 spot last year and moved back so I could take Drake May and Brian Thomas. So it's like, I'm like, oh, I already moved out of the spot. I was going to take Marvin Harrison. And then I moved back and took Drake May. So now it's like, I already moved back off of him. Do I want to move off him again? The trade I got offered is a 25 first, a 26 first, a 25 third, a 26 third, a 25 fifth, and a 26 fifth for Drake May. Oh, and he threw Des Walker in there, who I don't like at all. Is 2 firsts, 2 thirds, and 2 fifths enough for Drake May? He's in the playoff hunt, so my guess is these are going to probably be later picks.
Late picks on top of it. I mean, 2 late thirds. I like late picks, but we all know that it's like, I mean, anywhere from like 5 to 7%.
You're just like, you're throwing darts. I mean, I usually think I draft pretty well, so I don't mind those picks. But man, I'm like 2 late firsts and 2 late thirds for Drake May.
When you get the end of the first round pick, you're deciding between like Xavier Worthy and Brian Thomas, and there's so many mistakes that can be made later in the first round of the draft. You know, I
like Drake May. And there's the thing is, I really like Drake May. He was like, he probably outside. I mean, I could have taken Jayden Daniels too, and I like Drake May better than him. That's why I was willing to move back. I think in the long run,
it's so hard to hit on quarterback. It's so hard to hit on quarterback, first of all. And second of all, you're not getting a quarterback at 112 or 113 in a Superflex league, or like 111, 112. They're all gone.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not going to get another QB that late. That's my big worry. I also got another trade for Lamar Jackson, and I just want to see what you think on this one. Deshaun Watson, Bryce Young, Jaden Reed, and Ladd McConkey for Lamar Jackson.
That Reed and McConkey are nice additions, but I tell you what, man,
but Bryce Young and Watson's dead. I don't want him on my team no matter what. I mean, Bryce Young, he was looked better, but like for Lamar is a scoring machine.
Lamar has looked so good this year as a quarterback, as a athlete, as a teammate, as an everything. He kind of like he's at the point now where he put everything together, man. I was never a Lamar fan before, but man, I don't care, man. Unless I have 2 good quarterbacks on my team besides that, I'm just going to keep Lamar because the McConkey and who's the other one? The other receiver.
It was Jane Reed and McConkey, who I like both of those guys, but
yeah, I like Reed.
Those guys and Bryce Young, I don't know, or for Lamar.
No, I'm keeping Lamar. Lamar's going to guarantee me over 25 points a week almost every week. You know that, so I'm not. Yeah, nope. I got another trade for you in a league that I'm contending that I don't have.
I mean, Lamar's number one in our league in overall scoring. Just to put it out there, he's absolutely number one. He's outscored Joe Burrow. He's outscored Josh Allen. He's outscored Saquon. Outscored Hurts. He's the number one scorer in our entire league.
You can always trade for McConkeys and Reeds and stuff like that. Yeah, so no, I'm keeping Lamar. So that league I talked about before, where I lost Dak and I lost Trevor Lawrence, and now I lost Derek Carr and I lost I forgot who else I was on the team, but I had to make a trade. I got Jameis Winston. It's a 12 team 30 spot super flex tight end premium league. Okay, I got Jameis Winston, David Njoku, and Pat Freiermuth. That's all I had to send away was Audric Estime, Bryce Young, and a third round pick, like a mid third. I mean, it's like that. I don't know. I mean, Estime is okay. He's Notre Dame boy, so I kind of like him a little bit.
I know you love Estime. I'm not a big Estime guy.
But Bryce Young, I think he's never going to be like a number one, like a top 12 quarterback, probably not even a top 16 or 18 quarterback. He's going to throw 180 yards and a touchdown, probably every week. That's probably his floor. Maybe 2 touchdowns, shit like that. I mean,
yeah, he's tough because like the Panthers are just such a dumpster fire. So that's a problem. Just being on that in that organization. I think he's better than he's shown. I was never a big Bryce Young guy coming out. I know people were like, "Oh, he's." I just was not. I was a CJ Stroud over Bryce Young guy all day, every day.
I'm going to get my quarterbacks next year. I'm going to get Bryce. I'm going to get Dak back. I'm going to get Trevor back. I'm going to have Jameis and I'm going to have Derek Carr. But to get Winston,
I'm all about buying Bryce Young cheap right now if you can, and people are ready to get rid of him. I don't think he's completely dead in the water yet, but like, is he going to be like a high end number one overall pick guy that you would expect? I'm not sure that's going to happen.
I got Winston and Njoku and Freiermuth within a 0.75 10 premium, and those are I was kind of the only spot that I didn't have.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I'm super happy with that one. So, couple more trades here, and then I don't know how long we want to stick on this show for, but we already talked about Jonnu Smith for a late 26 second.
Jonnu Smith is making the run here at the end of the year. He's piling it up. Oh, he is crushed for me on Scott Fishbowl right after I missed the playoffs. I made the playoffs and then lost in the first round by 1.67 points. If I would have just played a different kick, my other kicker, I would have made next round, and I have smoked the last 2 weeks. Jonnu Smith absolutely was lighting it up for me and scoring in that league. Yeah, that's a toughie because like he's been killing it lately, but I don't know if this is going to be something that lasts beyond this season. We'll see, but I don't mind giving up
a late second
for
2 years from now.
Late second 2 years from now. Ooh.
In 2026 second.
If you're like, I guess if you're rebuilding and you got Jonnu just sitting on your team, but you're not going to make the playoffs, I absolutely would probably make that trade.
I'm going to give this guy, it's John McNamara. He's in this league. He's the guy he won the league and he came in second place. So he's got the next 12 years of fantasy football played for pretty much, because he won by money wise. He's playing for free for the next 12 years. And he just traded his entire team away one spot, one piece at a time, all year long. I mean, it was like every week, one or two trades. He's got nothing but first and seconds coming up for a while. I mean, he did a real good job of rebuilding, and it's not just 1 year. Also, he got a second, like 25s. And
he traded away Jonnu Smith and got the second.
He traded away Jonnu Smith and got a second, and
if he's doing that, if that's his strategy, he's just getting picks. I absolutely love it. Then I'm absolutely doing that.
And he just traded away James Conner to get a 26 first. Like, the same thing to also like what
love it. Freaking love it. I mean, if you're gonna, here's the problem. There's a couple of leagues that I tried to do this where I was trying to move like high end assets like Derrick Henry, Kelsey in a league where I was just not deep enough to win it. I just couldn't get anybody to give me decent offers, man. Everybody wanted to give me like seconds or wanted to give me like a first for like 2 or 3 guys, and I'm like, I need more than that in like a 14 team league.
Right.
So I just ended up sitting on him. Like I said, I traded David Montgomery for a first. I tried to get a first and a second or 2 firsts for Kelsey and Henry and just couldn't do it.
Right. All right. So a couple more trades. I'll just keep to my home leagues, not the other ones that I'm in. Okay. So one guy who's traded away Chuba Hubbard, and he got Michael Pittman in a second-round pick. Pittman in a second-round pick for Hubbard. I mean, that's the guy rebuilding got Pittman in a second-round pick, which is probably gonna be we'll call it a playoff second pick next year also. So Pittman's having a down year, but I like Pittman's long-term value. So
I like Pittman long-term, and I like that second. Like I said, I'm trying to acquire seconds because I think there's going to be a lot of running backs in that second round. I want a couple seconds if I can get them. Because here's what I'm thinking. I mean, you got Pittman, and I think you're not gonna get a first for Chuba. You're just not. And so if you could get a mid-second and Pittman, I think I love that trade.
Pittman's in early second by himself, then you got another probably mid-second.
That's what I'm saying. I love that the fact that you got Pittman and the second for Chuba. I love it.
Yeah, that's a trade that I was one of the ones I'm never able to make those kind of trades. I don't know how people do it. I get screwed around all the time, and everybody get out of here. Why would you even send that kind of shit? And then I see it go through in a different league. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I know. It's hitting the right guy that needs a player in a certain spot, and those things, just sometimes it works out well. I mean, I feel like I've been in some leagues where I'm back and forth, can't ever get a deal done with like 47 offers and counter offers, and then other leagues it's like dude comes out and just offers like boom, and I'm like, oh, well that works. Let's take that one right now. It's you know what I mean. So sometimes it works out that way.
This one puzzled me a little bit, okay? And it's kind of a biggie, but Tyrone Tracy, Raheem Mostert, and T. Higgins, okay? This is a 12-team, 30-man roster, PPR, tight end premium. Tracy, Mostert, and T. Higgins for Jalen Polk and Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh.
Tracy, Mostert, and Higgins for Polk and Marvin Harrison Jr.
God, I'm a Marvin guy. I love Marvin Harrison Jr. Oh, I gotta take that side all day. Now, I can see the other guy going, well, Marvin Harrison hasn't had as big of a year as people were expecting, but I also think Kyler Murray's not been very good this year. And I can see T going like, okay, T. Higgins is equal, if not better than Marvin Harrison, probably in that person's eyes. And so you're going Polk, who did nothing, and you're giving Mozart, who's been hurt all year, and then Tracy. Some people love Tracy, some people don't. I'm not super high on Tracy, even though I did trade for him in a league this year. Because I was a team that was making the playoffs, hopefully make the playoffs, did make the playoffs, and I needed another running back, and it was a college C2C league, so I traded some college side players and got Tracy on the NFL side. I'm on Marvin Harrison big time on that trade. We got out of rhythm here. He says sold Marvin Harrison Jr. for 25 first and 25 second with James Cook. I love Marvin. I hate to give up everything, but that first, if you got a first 2 seconds and James Cook, it's not terrible. I'm also not a huge James Cook guy, even though he's good and he's on a good team. Yeah,
that's know where that first is at. Where's that? It's only 1 second on top of it. 25-2 with James Cook. So
a first second James Cook. I'm probably holding MHJ for that, but I can see if you're Cook or you need running backs. I don't. Yeah, I think it's probably if I'm leaning the MHJ side, but I can see that. I can see that move. It's tough for me to move him from less than a couple firsts, but an early second and James Cook, I can see that move. He also said earlier he drafted Brian Thomas over May in the first round in a league. He says he did make the playoffs, but he basically hurting at QB, but basically used the waiver wire to make the playoffs. I tell you what, I took Brian Thomas over a few guys in a league. I loved Brian Thomas. I still do. He was like the guy I was targeting in every league. And I had a bunch of leagues where he fell late in the first or early second, and I absolutely traded my first round pick next year. That this coming up here is 2025 to get Brian Thomas. So I loved him enough that I went and got him in a few leagues where I gave up first rounders for him. So I like Brian Thomas a lot. May, I love both. Like I said, I drafted May and Thomas when I traded away the 1-2, and then I later traded Thomas for Puka, and I'm still a little upset at myself that I made the trade.
Yeah.
Because I kind of want Puka. I kind of want Brian Thomas back. Though I do like Puka. May and Brian Thomas were probably outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. and neighbors. Brian Thomas and May were probably my two favorite players in last year's draft.
All right, Nick Chubb or an early, let's say a top 6 anyway, second round, 25 second.
I want the second.
Yeah.
Again, I'm eyeing a bunch of rookie running backs in that second round. Now, are they going to hit? Who knows? But I'm trying to position myself to get as many early seconds as I can.
Mid 4th and an early 5th, or Devin Singletary.
Oh. Man, I would, if you would have asked me this question 2 months ago, I'm like Devin Singletary smash.
Yes.
But they have just abandoned him in New York. I just can't believe how much they just decided they just didn't like him anymore. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm hoping he maybe gets on another team or goes somewhere else or does something, because I still think Devin Singletary's playable and a decent player. I've always liked him. I think that's a Singletary smash. Now I'm not so sure. I probably still take Singletary over the picks, even though I eat 4th, 5th round picks, so we can throw in 5 more tight ends on our roster that'll sit for 3 or 4 years and do nothing. But we like to look at them and think they're eventually going to be good.
Drew Lock or a playoff third?
If this is a 2 QB or a Superflex league, my guess is you need him as a starter. And in any of my leagues, if he's starting right now, going to the playoffs, you would have to give up a third for him. Like there's like no one's going to give you a starting quarterback without giving up a third in any of my major Superflex or 2 QB leagues. So I if you're in the playoffs and you need Drew Lock to play, which I'm in that situation, I probably am giving up the third if I need him if I'm in the playoffs.
These are all trades from last week or so. This guy didn't. He had week 14 by apocalypse kind of had him, so he had no choice but to trade for a quarterback. So,
and in those types of leagues, I've seen some leagues you can get somebody cheaper, like a 4th rounder, but in most of my leagues, you're giving up at least a second or a third in those types of situations.
Yeah, Travis Homer or a 5th round pick, mid 5th.
Oh, that was somebody that needed Homer to start this week. I picked up Homer in a couple spots. I mean, I think it's even. I mean, it's a 5th if you needed someone to play this week and you're like, screw it, I'll take the extra draft pick because I don't need Homer. Then that's a fair trade.
Yeah, it's another one. The guy said, hey, just somebody send me a 5th for any running back that's breathing. Like, I'll take it, that kind of deal. So
yeah, I understand where he's at. Was in a bunch of situations where I started Travis Homer and a bunch of other guys that I'm like, oh, I can't even believe this guy's in my starting lineup, much less on my roster.
Wah, wah, wah. All right, last league. I'll just do this one. I think there's not been. Go ahead, Caleb Johnson.
I don't know. He says he hopes Iowa's Caleb Johnson lasts to the second round. It's going to be interesting to see where Johnson goes. I know a couple college guys that are super high on Caleb Johnson.
Yeah.
Like they got him in their first round of fantasy drafts, and they've got him in like the second round of the real NFL draft. If he goes there, it's going to be tough to get him into the second. But if he drops closer to the end of the second, beginning of the third round of the NFL draft, depending on where he lands, I could see him going the beginning of that second. I think that 108, 109 to like the 2-3, 2-4 is going to be real interesting.
Yeah,
in this next year's draft, because I think you're going to have a handful of running backs, a couple tight ends, and maybe 1 or 2 wideouts are all kind of like jammed in that group. And it's really good. I think it's going to depend on where guys land and just personal preference on some of these running backs, because I think a lot of these guys are super similar. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out.
I got a 25 5th for Brandon Allen the week when somebody needed a quarterback for the 49ers when he played that 1 week. So I'll take that as a small victory. Those are good. And then a couple more that just let's see. This is Babies and Boomers League. I think there's 1 or 2 more in here that I'm just scrolling over right now.
John, I'll tell you, I got one. I'll throw it out that I made maybe a week or 2 ago. I don't think we talked about it on the show though. Cooper Kupp and Pacheco for a 25 first and 2 mid to late 25 seconds. And one of the seconds I swapped a 25 late third for.
Can you say it one more time?
Cooper Kupp and Pacheco and a late third for a mid to late first, a mid to late second, and a late second.
I guess it depends on. The thing is, it's fair. So it's
a toughie. I gave up the players and took the draft picks because I just been struggling this year, and I was trying to get younger and get more picks. It was less than I wanted, but I just couldn't get anybody to give me 2 firsts or give me a first and 2 early seconds. I just couldn't get anybody to jump in. So the best I could do was 2 seconds. And I had one guy's third, and then the other guy had his second. So we just flopped the picks. So he got 1 pick. I got 1 round earlier in the same draft spot. So I got a first and 2 seconds for Cooper Kupp, Pacheco, and then slopped the third. It was tough. I hated to give it up. I gave up a ton more for Cooper Kupp 2 years ago when I drafted him, a ton more. But I also had Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Puka after I made the Puka trade. So I had all of them. I'm like, should I give up one of these guys? And I am here's part of the reason I made the trade too. I am desperate for running back in this league. I traded away James Conner and DeAndre Swift, and my only playable running backs are CMC and Jalen Warren, and now CMC's injured and out for the year. So this week I started CMC and Travis Homer. Jalen Warren and Travis Homer were my starting running. So I'm like, I need some draft picks because I need to get some running backs. So I was like, I could possibly get 2 running backs in the second round. Plus I have 2 first round picks. One of them is going to be top 4. So if I win the overall number 1 pick, I'm probably going to take Ashton Jeanty. But if I don't win it, I can go QB because it's a 2 QB league. I can go either the top QB I like, or I can get one of the top 2 wide receivers to replace Puka, or to replace Cooper Kupp. And then I've got my late first and my 2 seconds. I could go running back, at all 3 spots and possibly give myself a chance to have some playable running backs next year. Yeah. So, because my running back room is just atrocious now after I made trades and injuries. So I'm trying to get as many of those second rounders as I can to load up.
I got a trade in my inbox right now, and I hate talking about trades with you when you're in the same league as me, but it is what it is. So
I'm going to brought one up to you, so we're the same ones. The same boat.
So Brian Watson is offering me Marshawn Lloyd, which he knows I like Marshawn Lloyd. I think Marshawn Lloyd was the best receiving back in last year's class. He's got some bad luck starting out this year, and he's got some competition in front of him with a good running back. So Marshawn Lloyd in a playoff second in 2025. So Lloyd in a second, and he wants me to give up in a super flex, big scoring league. Wants me to give up Jameis Winston and Jonathan Brooks. I'm like, that's not even fucking close to me. Like those are.
I would need more because Brooks is, he was a good half a round earlier than Lloyd. Lloyd was mid to late second. Brooks was late first. Jameis, like, he's he's going to get you points for this playoffs, but where is he going to be at next year? I know I sold him when everybody thought he was going to start in New Orleans. I sold him off because I thought that was my last chance. And of course, then he sat the bench for a bunch of years. Now he's back in. You just don't know with him.
I tell you what,
I like Lloyd. I think that's not bad, but man, only a late second there is gosh, it kind of hurts. I feel like you need a third.
He doesn't have
an extra third.
I'd have to include a player, which would be like he's got Derek Carr, Kenny Pickett, Andy Dalton, and Dak Prescott. He's not giving any of them guys up. He's got Spencer Rattler, which he's not going to give up right now because he's also got Derek Carr. But okay, so I need running backs in this league bad. I know I got 2 first round, 2 second round picks. Hopefully I'll have a 3rd first round pick with the draft lottery or the shit bowl that I'm in. And my team's pretty good in this league as far as that goes. But he's got Kyron Williams, Kamara, Braylon Allen, which I'm trying to get Braylon Allen. Like, I love Braylon Allen. I'm trying to make that happen. He's got Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall.
If you could go Lloyd the second and Allen for Brooks and Jameis, I'd do that.
I've already got Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, Will Levis on this team already. And I'm not sure what James is going to do next year. Like I think we've already talked about, he's going to be a lifelong backup after this season. So you would do that, right, Braylon Allen?
I like to move. I would move Jameis if I'm not making the playoffs, and you're not. So I would move Jameis. If you could, to me, because Lloyd, I like Lloyd, and I know you like Lloyd too, but he's still quite a bit, even with the injury to Brooks. I still think he's behind Brooks because he's been hurt all year too. So it's not like. So I think he's still a little lower than Brooks on the shelf. Jameis, is he equal to a late second? Probably in that type of league. If you could throw another draft pick or like Braylon Allen in there, to me, I would need one more piece to make that work. But if you got to get rid of him just as like, hey, I've been in a situation where like, hey, I got to sell this quarterback now because if I don't sell him now, I'm just going to get stuck with him and I can't use him. I can see making that trade if you just feel like I just need to make the move again because you could get another running back in the second with that pick. But if I could add Braylon Allen, I would.
I don't want to. I'll tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to have to wait till the season's over with to make this trade because I need Jameis to fill in over Will Levis. Because if I win this league's shit bowl, I get pick 113. What's the use of trading away Jonathan Brooks?
See, that's the other toughie we haven't discussed there, John. I'm in a couple leagues the same way. I want to trade some players away, but I'm in a couple leagues where you get the 113 if you win the toilet bowl. And so I'm like, I want to trade away for first round picks, but if I'm trading it to a guy that's making the playoffs and I'm already going to get like the 109, 110, am I better off keeping my good player, having him, and trying to win the toilet bowl and win it and get the 13th pick because it's only 3 picks later than whatever I going to trade my guy for? Or I trade the guy, get a first rounder, but then my team's not as good and I don't win that first round pick then. So I think that also is another good reason to do picks like that because it makes people really have to question like unloading players. If you just missed the playoffs like I did, like I just said, in 9 different leagues, then you would assume probably the best team that didn't make the playoffs. If there's a pretty big incentive to try to win the toilet bowl, I'm not necessarily going to just unload all my guys.
Yeah. His only quarterback is Spencer Rattler right now. That's why he's kind of desperate. So I guess it wouldn't happen after the draft. He'd probably just say, go pound sand. I'll get my quarterbacks next year. But he does have his own first.
Is he in the playoffs right now?
Yeah, he made the playoffs.
All he has is Rattler?
All he has is Rattler. He's got cars out.
He needs it. Counter with Lloyd, Allen.
So what if I took out Jalen? What if I took out Brooks out of this equation altogether and just said Jameis Winston for Allen, Lloyd, and the second round pick? Do you think he'd take that?
No. I think you'd have to do Brooks and Winston for the 2 other running backs and the second rounder.
Vidal, Kamani Vidal, or I got Roshan, which I don't know what's going on with Roshan right now. He's fucking making me sick. But Shipley, McNichols, Dylan Labe, those guys, nobody rings a bell as far as I like Brooks' long-term career, and he's still 20 years old. I really don't want to trade him away just because I'm looking to make a deal, especially to make this guy's team. I'm not trying to help him win a fucking championship and sell my guys away either at the same time. So,
yeah,
I could maybe.
The other option is if you want to hold Brooks, just offer Winston for the second.
What if I said Winston for the second and Lloyd?
I mean, you could offer that. Maybe he'll do it. Maybe he won't. I mean, Lloyd's been hurt all year too. Here's your problem with Lloyd. Is he's a Packers fan. So
I know
he's frustrated that Lloyd's been hurt, but he's also not just going to give him away.
It's a late.
Here's the other option. If he doesn't take that, offer the second and Braylon Allen for Winston. Get rid of Lloyd, get rid of Brooks, add Braylon Allen in with the second for Winston.
Should I do Lloyd in the pick first or Lloyd and Allen first?
Has he offered this to you, or are you looking to offer him something?
He offered it to me. He offered the original pick to me, the original Lloyd in the second for Winston and Brooks, which Winston, as much I have a soft spot. It's like trading away Sam Darnold to me, but I know that he doesn't have. So
I would add personally, if it was me, I would add Allen to the trade, or I would switch it up, take the running backs out. You know what I'm saying? And then do like Winston in a second and maybe one of the other running backs if you don't want to put Brooks in there.
Winston's more.
I don't think he would.
I feel like
I don't think you're going to get a first for Jameis Winston's the problem.
I'm going to, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to leave the second in there and I'm going to leave Lloyd in there. And I'm going to take Brooks out and I'm going to put in like Vidal, Kamani Vidal, and who else? Patrick Taylor from right now. He's, that kind of deal. Maybe he gets this.
Patrick. If you're going for the shit bowl, Patrick Taylor maybe helps you if he ends up starting, but like that's the only reason you would even want him on your rosters if you're going to play him.
McNichols maybe because he's going to have a role, like that kind of deal. I'm just throwing garbage right now to try to.
It's like you're throwing out the crazy stuff right now, John. Right, I think any of those guys. I think you could throw one of those guys in there and see what he says.
I'm going to say Lloyd in the late second for Winston. I'm going to send that and just he could deny it. I don't care, but he's the one who needs a quarterback. Well, way more than I need.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He needs a QB. Like I said. And if he's like pushing hard for Brooks, then I think you could say like, okay, well then I've got to throw a couple other guys in there for Brooks. Like I can't just give Brooks 1-for-1 with Lloyd. Like I need multiple guys if I'm going to trade Brooks away.
Well, he can have a quarterback if he's going to send Lloyd in a second. So it's a late second. I mean, we all talked about like you're entering the third round. Plus, there's an extra pick in there. So whatever pick he gets, it'll be one pick less because 113 takes up an extra pick. So, all right. Well, that's the show, everyone. Thank you very much for joining the Dynasty Commissioner or the Dynasty Evaluation Show. Much appreciated. You guys listening. I can't wait. We're gonna have some off-season content this year, even after the playoffs. I can't wait to do a couple small, like probably 20 half-hour minute videos with JT about some of the rookies coming in. I'm really looking forward to that this year, and I have a lot to learn from JT. Writing, talking, all the stuff about college players. I'm new to the college industry here, so but I really, really, really like it. So. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, John, I didn't do a lot last season because I wrote so much for DLF and other people in the off season, but on the Stew with JT Brew, mostly I do gambling stuff during the season, but we're going to do quite a bit of draft, pre-draft, post-draft stuff over there on the Stew. I'm going to have you on as a guest. So make sure to check out you here at the Dynasty Evaluation, but also over at the Stew with JT Brew. Going to do a lot of like mock drafts. And some things like that. I've already got a couple stories out there for the 2025 draft. Also have one out for the 2026 draft. So we're going to have some discussions about some of these guys. Obviously, we'll know who's coming out for the draft, who's coming back, because that will make a big difference here in the next month or two as we decide what guys are going to declare and who isn't going to declare. But a lot of talk, a lot of draft talk. That's one of my absolute favorite things of the entire NFL cycle is the draft cycle leading up to the draft, and the draft are just one of my favorite things overall. So looking forward to that as well.
Very good. Very good. You know where to go. Stu at J2 Brew, Dynasty Evaluation, fantasy and frames across the board. Thanks for joining us. And we look forward to this will be on the podcast form across the board also. So thank you very much. We'll talk to you later.